Graham Morris to move.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I thank my good and honourable friend, the member for Gateshead and chair of the Backbench Business Committee, and the committee members for granting this debate. I would like to remind the House that 31 members from across the House supported this application for this debate, including the late Sir Tony Lloyd, a good friend sadly missed and a steadfast supporter of miners and mining communities. Yesterday, I marched with Bert Moncur, a former Merton miner and a constituent of mine who worked underground alongside my late father, as well as my mentor and my predecessor in this place, John Cummins. Hundreds of pensioners from across our coalfield communities marched on Westminster with a clear message. We want our money back. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, we know the government's position, claiming to protect pensions while balancing the needs of the scheme and the needs of the taxpayer. But in reality, there's no fairness or balance. The government has taken nearly £5 billion from the pension fund without contributing a single penny since 1984. Despite challenges like COVID-19, the pandemic, the global banking collapse and the government's financial meltdown, the Mine Workers Pension Scheme has endured without any government financial support. The miners I marched with yesterday are taxpayers, once part of thriving mining communities with full employment and decent wages. They contributed to their pensions, assuming that they would have security in retirement. Yet their jobs, wages and now pensions have been taken by this Conservative government. I was born into a mining family in the coalfield community of Merton in 1961. Madam Deputy Speaker, unless you were born in a mining community, it's hard to explain how life was organised around the pit. I can remember Merton Pit Pond, our swimming pool, which was heated by surplus hot water from the mine. I had my first shower at Shotton Colliery Pit Baths. Every village had a network of colliery clubs, of parks, of sports teams, of welfare facilities vital to community life, funded by contributions from working miners. Our culture and heritage remains, celebrated in our miners' banners and brass bands that are showcased every year at the Durham Miners Gala. On the platform, we've had the greats of the labour and trade union movement, the likes of Nye Bevan, Tony Benn, and the Right Honourable Member for Doncaster North. The illustrious list will surely grow this year when my good and honourable friend, the Member for Wansbeck, addresses the gala. There's no feeling quite like it, marching to the racecourse, following your village banner and brass band. It is indeed a unique privilege. When I grew up in the 1960s and 70s, Madam Deputy Speaker, life was never easy in mining towns and villages. But in the main, we were happy with her and life had purpose and meaning. The pit provided full employment for all ages and abilities. While our streets weren't paved with gold, our communities were rich with pride and honour, and we had a sense of self-worth. The men in the mines during my childhood were from the wartime generation, those who risked their lives to defend our country, democracy and way of life. Men like Bill McNally, a Merton miner who was awarded the Victoria Cross for bravery in World War I, and his family still reside in the village. His grandson Kevin McNally is a diamond and one of my closest friends. The coal industry was crucial in creating our nation's wealth, fueling the fires of industry of the Industrial Revolution, sustaining us through 2 world wars and enabling the growth of new sectors in finance and the city. There's no doubt about it. This country, this nation, owes the mining communities a debt of honour and a debt of gratitude that is yet to be repaid. I will give way to the...
I'm very pleased just to take a brief intervention in this debate for the simple reason that he may or may not know that I was Vice President of the Mining Communities All-Party Parliamentary Group for some time. And I too would like to pay tribute to the miners, for whom I fought during the miners' strike for the UDM side of things, but just simply to say, those of us who were brought up in the 50s, in my case, do know very well the conditions of the miners at that time, and I've always had the most enormous deep affection for them, which I carry through to this day.
I thank the Honourable Member for that intervention. It's characteristically very generous, and his remarks are noticed and appreciated. I just wanted to say that the last pit in my constituency, Easington Colliery, closed in 1983, and at that time coal provided 50% of the UK's electricity production. The decision at the time to close the British coal industry made our country dependent on imported coal, which until 2014 still accounted for 35% of energy generation. Coalfield communities have never fully recovered from deindustrialisation. This was proven and evidenced in the new report, The State of the Coalfields 2024, published by Sheffield Hallam University and the Coalfields Regeneration Trust. And I might say, in response to the Honourable Member, the All-Party Group continues to take up causes and issues very ably chaired by my honourable friend, the member for Blaenau Gwent. Oh, sorry, and Pontypridd, sorry. Yet the government continues to undermine the local economy, evidenced in this excellent report, despite the regular trumpeting of policies of levelling up. In reality, the Conservative Party levelling up is choosing to invest in places like Richmond and Cheltenham, rather than in places like Hordern in my constituency, which is in the top 1% of the most deprived areas in the country. Levelling up offered hope, but a ready-to-go Hordern master plan for regeneration was sidelined by a Conservative-led coalition at Durham County Council, favouring a single bid from Bishop Auckland, a constituency represented by a Conservative MP and a former minister in the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities. The government have ignored and neglected our most deprived mining communities. Far from levelling up, Conservative ministers have widened economic inequality. I will give way.
Very grateful for my honourable friend giving way, but would he also agree with me the problem with the levelling up agenda the government's been pursuing is that it's mainly about capital investment in issues which isn't desperately needed in coalfield areas. But at the same time, you've had a situation whereby, for example, Durham County Council has lost 240 million out of its grant. So those services that he and my constituency rely on have been devastated over the last 14 years.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for that intervention. Indeed, I was going to talk about the levelling up bidding rounds, and he and other members are well aware of the costs that were incurred by the County Council, £1.2 million in preparing bids that were not weren't approved by the government. My own view is that we should have a system that is needs-based. It shouldn't be a beauty contest. Those communities, including the mining communities that are amongst the most deprived and urgently in need of regeneration, should be prioritised, and unfortunately that isn't happening. The evidence is quite clear, and it's laid out in the State of the Coalfields report, and I know the members are going to mention, so I won't dwell on that point. Coalfield communities undoubtedly face numerous challenges: lack of job opportunities, limited public investment, higher council taxes. We could have a whole separate debate about the flawed council tax, which penalises areas like mine and honourable colleagues here with relatively low property values. Coalfield communities have an increased demand on social services because of an ageing population, many of whom have health legacies associated with work in the pits and in heavy industry, generally lower disposable incomes, and under these conditions, local economies struggle to thrive, lacking sufficient income to support vital small businesses and employment opportunities. Low wealth in our region coincides with low wages, making my region, the North East, the lowest paid region in the country. The government could alleviate this, in part, by addressing past injustices and ensuring retirement security for mine workers and their widows by reforming the Mine Workers Pension Scheme in line with the BIE's Select Committee recommendations that were published in April 2021. A legacy of mining is industrial disease, cutting life short, including that of my own father and grandfather, both coal miners who passed away in their 50s before reaching retirement age. My father died in the belief that his pit pension would provide security for my ageing mother, who incidentally is celebrating her 88th birthday on Sunday. So, however, we do know that some pensioners receive as little as £10 a week from the Mine Workers Pension Scheme. Our miners created the wealth that made this country great, with the Mine Workers Pension Scheme being amongst the UK's largest pension funds. However, money that should be used to provide security in retirement is being siphoned off by the Treasury, taking half of all of the pension fund surpluses. In a parliamentary response to me dated December, ministers confirmed they have taken £4.8 billion, billion not million, as reported on the TV last night, 4.8 billion out of the pension scheme. I note this figure has not been adjusted for inflation. So I would like to ask the Minister, what would the figure be if it wasn't adjusted for inflation? This money should be used to enhance pensions. It wouldn't only provide extra security in retirement, but would support our local economies, coalfield communities, employment and small businesses. This is due to the vast majority of retired miners and their widows continuing to live in our coalfield communities. The moral case for reform is only strengthened by an unfulfilled promise of a disgraced former Prime Minister. And I feel I must remind members, particularly members opposite, of the promise made by Boris Johnson when addressing miners in Mansfield and Ashfield during the general election campaign in 2019. Boris Johnson once again deceived the voters, failing to fulfil his promise on the surplus sharing arrangements, which remain grossly unjust. The government and the Minister has the opportunity to put this right today. I want to commend my colleagues in the Shadow Cabinet, especially my honourable friend, the member for Bristol North West, the Shadow Chief Secretary of the Treasury, who chaired the BIE Select Committee, which has provided a blueprint for reform. The Select Committee report on the Mine Workers Pension Scheme offers a roadmap for retaining the Crown Guarantee, releasing the £1.2 billion in the Investment Reserve Fund, returning the surplus and protecting the taxpayer. With key members like those that my honourable friends for Blaydon, Bristol North West, Doncaster North and Barnsley East likely to hold crucial positions in a future Labour government, I'm confident we can achieve pension justice for retired miners and their widows in our coalfield communities. I urge my own front bench to provide a clear commitment on this issue at the earliest opportunity. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, and in conclusion, I want to mention my constituent Ray Patterson. Ray sadly passed away last year, aged just 62. Ray was one of 11,291 people arrested, one of 9,000 sacked during the miners' strike, and his life would be changed forever by his imprisonment on the ancient charge of unlawful assembly, a law that can trace its origins back to 1328. After the strike, the government would abolish unlawful assembly, introducing the Public Order Act. Ray was innocent, and during any other time, he would not have been charged, arrested or convicted. I was 24 during the miners' strike and saw how the Conservative government tried to starve workers and their families into submission. I saw police state on the streets of East Durham intent on crushing miners fighting to protect their jobs and communities. The government, courts, police and national media were part of a criminal conspiracy against working people in coalfield communities. Ray, who was imprisoned, lost his job, his pension, spent the rest of his life rebuilding. He left us too early, but his legacy will live on through his family. Ray maintained his innocence and fought to exonerate himself. I'm sorry, Ray, that we couldn't deliver justice in your lifetime, but we need the truth. And while Scotland has taken steps with the Mine Workers Pardons Bill, England and Wales lag behind. The policing of the strike was notorious, marked by perjury, fabricated evidence, willingly accepted in the government's war on the miners. 4 decades later, it's imperative that ministers commit to uncovering the truth about the strike, especially the events in relation to Orgreave. Many convictions from the strike are unsafe, warranting the erasure of criminal records with a very few exceptions. From Orgreave to Hillsborough, a pattern of criminal misconduct in public office emerges, with South Yorkshire Police at its centre. Coalfield communities face numerous challenges in achieving justice and economic growth. We require a government committed to levelling up, fair taxation and justice. Despite slogans like Big Society, Northern Powerhouse and Levelling Up, the Conservative Party have failed to deliver tangible interventions, particularly in the areas of greatest need, like Hordern, Easington, Peterlee, Merton, Blackhall, Southampton, Hassel, Shotton and Seaham. Residents in these communities see little hope for opportunity and the hope of opportunity under a Conservative government. So the Labour front bench must address this challenge by bringing investment, growth and opportunity to these former mining communities in need of a real alternative. Thank you, Madam Speaker.